In the military, everything's kind of siloed. So it's going to be a very restricted environment. And we don't know, because especially with, like, you start seeing the conflicts in Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, we're in a very unique time when it comes to conflict. Drone warfare, you start seeing swarming tactics. We haven't seen the full onslaught of cyber warfare. But, I mean, can you imagine, like, shutting down a grid with a virus?
Hey everyone, don't forget to subscribe, like, share.
And I think I was trying to prove to other people I could do it, And I found a really good woman, and I was thinking, like, you know what? Like, is it really worth it to be, like, don't get me wrong, it's an awesome community, but, I was getting older, I wanted to have a family. So I didn't want to be single forever. So, like, you know what? I don't want to risk it. And even if I go through it, I might not get selected. So it'd be nice to at least attempted to go through it, but it's a waste of time to go through, that selection and just say no.
Yeah.
Because you're just taking a spot for someone that really wants to do it. So, yeah, you think about, would I've liked to do that? But would I have been happy to at the end? Maybe not. And talking to other people too, just because you could be a lot of guys, you could be a SEAL or whatever it is. Just because you go through that doesn't mean you're going to be doing the SEAL things or the MARSOC things. You might be stuck in a COC, a Combat Operations Center, literally doing exactly what you didn't train for. You might be stuck behind a radio, or be behind a laptop, pulling reports, and commanding, controlling the teams out there, which you didn't sign up for. You sign up to, like, lead Marines or lead whoever in combat, and you're stuck behind a desk.
Yeah.
So I think what happened was it was good that it's good I talked to my old CEO, I talked to other people, because it at least made me aware of what I would have been been a part of, or been at least attempted.
Again, God is saying,
Yeah.
hey, I have other plans for you.
Yeah.
And so you continue in Miramar for a little bit more. You unfortunately have to bury your father.
Yes.
You meet your soon-to-be wife. You end up getting married. Then you get orders to New Orleans. And you move your wife and yourself down here. And then what happens?
Well, the good thing was New Orleans, it being this is where they have the reserve headquarters for all the Marines, and I was able to, because I don't think it was as busy as the active duty units, or it could be maybe similar, but I felt like the active duty units were just pumping out every few months. There are more rotations, so I was able to get my degree here, my master's online, and I got another certificate, a few certificates actually, because the tempo wasn't as crazy. So we were able to get a house here, I was able to get my education done, and it was helpful because I was able to build my resume up that I probably wouldn't have been able to do in another game, because I might have deployed with them, and it might have been, the op tempo would have been a lot heavier.
Yeah.
So I was able to get that done here.
So now, on top of your bachelor's, you have two, business and economics. You're both you join the enlisted ranks. You become an officer. You eventually become a logistics officer. You're moving people and things across really the globe. Now you move from Miramar, California, where you put your father to rest, and then you meet your soon-to-be wife, and you get married, and then you move out here to New Orleans. You're part of a Marine Reserve headquarters, and here you then have the opportunity to accomplish your MBA. On top of that, you get a few more certificates. So you went from having major issues back in elementary school, partly middle school, of not being able to really read and write, and learn, you had learning disabilities, to now you've accomplished so many different things to include a family.
Yeah.
and your wife and yourself have your baby girl Camila. She came along on this journey, and you've been serving collectively for 12 years in the United States Marine Corps, and now you have the opportunity to return. Your next duty station is back to California, Camp Pendleton.
Yeah, and I got really lucky with that because my monitor was able to work with me and the family, and it's gonna be better because we're gonna have opportunity to be closer to the family, and then they'll be able to help us possibly. But what I should say also, which I didn't, there's so many, and I would say a lot of people in the civilian sector probably do the same thing too, but there's so many hours that are taken out of our time to learn your job that, whether it be books or articles that you don't get certificates, you don't get any degrees for, but you need them because they help build understanding of your job. And I think what that taught me was, especially the more I read, I started getting really heavy into reading after TBS. Is the more I read, the more I started informing myself and educating myself. I started realizing how much I don't know. The more you read, the more you start educating yourself, the more you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah.
So, and it's almost like an endless pool of information. There's so much information that changes, and then different perspectives and new systems that are developed, new processes that you have to continuously educate yourself if you want to be successful.
Now, on top of that, you leverage expertise in certain disciplines.
Yes.
So you hit the nail on the head. It's the more you educate yourself, the more you realize, the less you know.
Yes.
And I think that's such a heavy point to hammer home, because we know so little, individually and collectively. But collectively, we know more together than we do by ourselves. And again, there's topics in business that I reach out to you about. There's topics in certain sciences that I reach out to and you do the same, certain other people about, friends and colleagues. And I think that's what's really important, is building a strong network of expertise that at the end of the day, you reach out to those people because they're trusted, they're educated in that field, and at the end of the day, they're going to help you get to where you need to be. And in return, you'll be able to help them in some capacity. I listened very quickly to a podcast / YouTube video. This young lady was explaining how she was a medical doctor, just had graduated, and she had a real passion about making videos. And she wasn't real keen on the editing portion. It just didn't. I mean, she just wasn't good at it. She learned how to do it. She kind of got a grip of what needs to happen. But at the end of the day, it's not her expertise. So what she did heavily in the beginning of her business, as far as YouTube is concerned, she actually took on tutoring. So the amount of money that she made in, say, 3 hours of tutoring was enough to pay for someone else to edit her videos, where she would have spent 8, 9, 10 hours to edit her videos. So there's this collective trade-off. It's recognizing what we're good at, recognizing what we're not good at, understanding that our network, if we expand our network, then the people that we bring into our network, hopefully they're good at certain aspects, we're not, and we can leverage each other to hopefully get better. Yeah,
and I mean, not that you couldn't be a good editor, but
yeah,
it might take, like I said, a lot of time to devote to build that skill. And like you said, she might have not had that time to build that skill when she needed that at that time. So you have to be flexible. You have to, because like you start seeing it now with like AI and large language models. Like what might be a valued skill now might not be. It might be perishable in the next 10 years. So you have to be flexible. You have to build flexibility in your skill set, your education, and you have to be open to trying new things. You have to, because if you don't, then you're gonna be stagnant. And that's just what it is. Like right now, the desire is programming. People are, a lot of companies are seeking out programmers and guys that know how to, build AI models. There might be a time where AI does better at programming than the actual programmers, and programmers become obsolete. Yeah. And so it's like, well, what do? Well, they probably have to learn how to manage the programming model. So then you got to be good at managing. I don't know. Or they just It's just a different, environments, different skills I need to be, developed outside of AI. So we're in a very interesting time because you're starting to see a capability that is offsetting or actually pushing out a lot of other skill sets, and it's rapidly improving.
But the scary thing is with artificial intelligence in general, large language models being an aspect of that, machine learning as a broader topic, it's good. This is good and it's bad at the same time. Machine learning is I'm sorry. Let me back up. The information that's outputted from our machine learning models is only as good as the information we provide it. So at the end of the day, you still need someone to verify that the information is accurate before it goes into this data pool or this data lake.
Yeah.
Right? And then once the machine, let's say we assign this information authoritative sources. We collectively have a body of people that says, hey, this pool of information is authoritative in its source. It's authoritative. Once that's agreed upon, the machines can then point to this pool and they can pretty much do a lot of tasks, the meaningless tasks that you and I dread, and a lot of people, fairly quickly. Searching through data, putting certain patterns together, discovering patterns that, let's say, you and I just would never have the opportunity to discover, maybe, if we had infinite time. And you're right. The skill set is changing. The machines, the computers, the quantitative computing eventually will make its way to mainstream in conjunction with machine learning technology. How does this change the landscape for the working environment?
Yeah, it's gonna be a very dynamic, very tumultuous time for a lot of people. But I think you're gonna have to look at skills that are beyond what AI could provide. So we're starting to see a push towards plumbing and blue collar jobs, because you can't have an autonomous machine fix whatever your plumbing. You just can't, or it can't fix my electrical outlets, or can't fix my gas stove or whatever. It can't do that. So not yet, and then you go into robotics. But I think there's also, you got to think about too, there might be a time where you start seeing this hybrid of machine and human working together, because the human mind is kind of weird. It's interesting, the stuff that we come up with stuff that create, the ideas that we come up with, just I don't know how people think about it. Think about back in the day, you talk about the Iliad, Odyssey and the Iliad, the idea of the centaur, or all these myths. It's I don't know if AI could, maybe it could come up with it, but what AI is doing is just taking that same creative content and just mixing it up. And that's why when you see AIs making movies, it's kind of this is bland. It's because it doesn't. I think it doesn't know how to feed into the human perspective as well. It doesn't know how to really creatively, or doesn't know how to generate creative content.
I mean that goes into the whole discussion, and not to get off track here, because we could very easily, but it goes into discussion of are computers conscious or not, and I personally argue computers will never be conscious, period, because they just don't have. Machines will never have the ability to have a consciousness, period. I just believe that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And that's because their decisions are on or off. It's a collective, it's a summation of ons and off, ones or zeros at the end of the day. The electrical signal's on or it's off. And the combination of these signals allows that computer to make some sort of decision. Now, there are algorithms that kind of surpass certain abilities and maybe streamline how the computer, the algorithm may come up to a decision. It's not necessarily I do this, if this, then that type deal. There are algorithms that may surpass some of those if-then statements. But at the end of the day, it's a summation of, in my opinion, just ones and zeros. How could you argue that a machine can have consciousness at the end of the day? This is to say, artificial intelligence leads us into the conversation of where you are going in the future. Where do you see yourself heading in the future? We understand you're moving back to California here shortly. What's next for the Obejis?
I mean, my goal is, if I do these, I do these next 3 years, I'll be with which is called the MEF, Marine Expeditionary Force Information Group. And they're right now like the tip of the spear when it comes to like information, cyber domain, intelligence. I would like to, get a better understanding of the cyber community. And if I do stay in, maybe after that, we'll see. But I would like to maybe get out and see what other opportunities are, available. Because I mean, I love the military, but I also I do want to plant some roots and then raise my daughter in a community I choose, outside of what the military tells me to do. And there's some states that there's no military bases for me to get stationed that I would like to live in. So, we'll see what happens after 3 years, but
that puts you at 15 years in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, and then I could do the reserves. I could burn out in the reserves. I don't mind that. Burn out in the reserves. That's fine. I'll still be in the pool of individuals. If some of those goes off, I'll deploy with them. When it comes to the autonomous stuff, especially with the cyber, and it's gonna be very different because in the military, everything's kind of siloed, so it's gonna be a very restricted environment. And we don't know, because especially with you start seeing the conflicts in Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, we're in a very unique time when it comes to conflict. Drone warfare, you start seeing swarming tactics. We haven't seen the full onslaught of cyber warfare. Like when it comes to shutting down the grid. People have these theories that Baltimore, that ship might have been shut down. We don't know. But I mean, can you imagine shutting down the grid with a virus?
It's very possible.
That does more harm than a nuke sometimes.
And this is the next leg of the future of America and really society as a whole across the globe. And it's very dangerous. I don't think it's not necessarily if you're not swimming in the pool, then you're not really getting wet, right? So yeah. It's no one's fault if you're living your life. How are you supposed to know these conversations are taking place, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has their day-to-day duties or whatever makes their passion. They're in the midst of their passion for life. But someone like you, someone like I, who's involved with this type of material, I would say arguably day-to-day basis, you're right. What happens in the future is America prepared for cyber threats? And maybe that's where your journey lies next.
Yes. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the next 3 years. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't, I'm not a Nostradamus, but something could happen. It bubbles up somewhere and we have to deploy. Or maybe it doesn't. I get out. I'm just ready to move on. But I would like to see myself working more with software and maybe more in the entertainment business, multimedia, possibly maybe making movies, podcasts, or something. Maybe definitely being more creative.
Yeah.
Doing more art, because I just feel like the Marine Corps is very black and white sometimes, and it just kind of gets a little redundant.
Yeah. Well, Robert Obeji, we thank you. Again, I want to say thank you to our audience. The whole objective of Roots is to talk through where you came from, where you're at today, and where you see yourself going in the future. And what was great about this conversation is you're highly educated, you've overcome tremendous hurdles in your life. And I would say arguably the most strenuous hurdle was the bearing of your father in taking care of the family front and managing your own family. But on top of that, you've achieved multiple degrees, multiple certificates. You're highly educated. You're a devout Christian, and you love your family dearly. And you serve our country as an active United States Marine Corps officer ranks captain. So it's always a pleasure, and I appreciate your time.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Giuliano.
Yes, sir. Talk soon, man. Hey everyone, don't forget to subscribe, like, share.